Okay, so the resource discussed in this video is Florida Center for Reading Research website. And specifically, this video is going to target phonics and how this can help you when approaching teaching phonics. But I really recommend getting deep into this website and just exploring all it has to offer. It has so many amazing resources regarding the science of reading and best practices for reading. There's tons of research on this website, articles that can support your learning, strategies that can support your learning. There's activities for students as well as sort of tutorials for teachers, especially first year teachers who are going into the field who may not know how to teach each and everything. And it provides you with research-based methods to teach everything. So this site does target every element of reading, every component, the phonics, phonological awareness, fluency, vocabulary, comprehension. But again, like I said, we're going to focus on phonics just because I feel like phonics and phonological awareness are two elements of reading that are a little harder to find quality resources for. It's interesting. There's a lot of sort of game-based and activity-based resources online for phonics and phonological awareness, but not a lot of research-based instructional supports for teachers, whereas I feel like it's kind of the flip side with vocabulary, fluency, comprehension. There's not a lot of really engaging resources for students for those elements, but there's a lot of support for teachers. So I think this is a really great resource if you want something that's really in-depth, really research-based and fleshed out for phonics. So what I have open right now is just their overview for their reading success. And this will tell you a little bit more about each component, why the teaching of reading is important, how they're interlaced, that sort of thing. There's some information over here about RTI, effective instruction, evidence-based practices, and the components of reading resources. So if we just click through here, again, you can see just how much useful information is here. There's just some quick references for teaching, specific resources. Again, as you can see, for all components of reading. If we open, phonics, my computer's being a little bit slow. It gives you an in-depth explanation of what phonics is, because I also feel like phonics and phonological awareness are a little hard to differentiate in my head sometimes. I'll mix them up a bit. So that's really useful. And it gives an overview basically of resources and best practices for teaching phonics. So this resource is definitely intended for teachers rather than learners, but that's something we need. So here, these are just some like video tutorials. I know at least throughout my coursework, I've learned a lot about best practices, but obviously that can get really jumbled in my mind, and I can definitely see myself pulling up a standard and saying, okay, what were the best strategies? How do I explicitly teach this in a way that students understand? So these resources can definitely be useful for that. So one of the key things about this website that really makes it stand out are the teaching resources for every element of reading, and then every sort of targeted skill within the component of reading. So I'm going to go ahead and open that page to show you. So this is the teacher resource guide, and I'll get into what exactly this is in just a second, but I did want to point out that this resource was created in Florida, centered around Florida standards, but these standards do align with the science of reading and really focuses on the 5 components of reading, which is becoming more and more commonplace in schools. And obviously there are a lot of similarities and standards, especially in younger grades, between states. So even though it doesn't give you the specific, unless you're in Florida, even though it doesn't give you the specific standard for your state, I'm sure you can find alignment with whatever your standards are. But this just gives a little explanation of what these are, the research behind them, how to use them. There's a lot of information here. So I'm just going to go ahead and look at one of these resources. So say I was in a 2nd or 3rd grade classroom. I can look, and all of these are different resources or research-based ways of teaching whatever skill it is. So if I wanted to jump down to phonics, we have all of these highly specific targeted activities for every element of phonics within 2nd and 3rd grade. So there's some resources for letter-sound correspondence. There's some resources for high-frequency words, variant correspondences, syllable patterns, morpheme structures, that sort of thing. So I can go ahead and open one of these to give you an example. So let's just open the vowel digraph, baseball. This gives you an assignment, an outline of what the assignment looks like, and all of the resources you need to complete the assignment. I know that it's important for teachers to design curriculum that really aligns with their specific students' needs, and to try to pull as little as possible from outside resources. You should cater your lessons to your students. But I know there's a lot of resources out there that teachers do pull from, and sometimes life happens. I know it's hard to organize completely creative, independent lessons as a teacher for every single thing you do. So rather than using something like Teachers Pay Teachers or another resource that's not based in research, I feel like this is a really great resource if you need some help. And you don't have to take this word for word. You can just use these resources to generate ideas. If you have trouble thinking what's an engaging way that I can get students to learn this resource is great for that. So it gives the specific objective. This would be the standard alignment. Obviously, you would have to find that in your own standards. But the objective is a pretty good way to gauge that. All the materials you'll need, and then an outline of the activity, and then some ways to extend and adapt it. We can look at some other ones too. If I wanted to do this one for syllable patterns. Again, the same way, it gives an outline, shows a picture of how it will look when it's completed, the objective, and all of the materials you need to complete the activity. And like I said, this is focusing on phonics, but I really suggest looking into everything this website has to offer, because there are a lot of elements offered for every other component of reading as well. So the Student Center activities was the highlight of this video, especially for phonics instruction, but there are a couple other things on this website that I feel could be useful for teaching phonics and really for teaching any element of reading that I wanted to highlight really fast. So this is the resource database, and on this site there are hundreds of resources categorized by a bunch of different resource types. As you can see, we have blog articles, websites, text documents, research studies, spreadsheets, slideshow, activity pages, infographic, video, audio, to suit a bunch of different needs. So this could be anything from additional activities for students to infographics to teachers on how to teach, best practices, as well as research that is currently happening in the field regarding the science of reading and reading components. So say I wanted to look for specific activities. If I typed in maybe blends, I'd get a couple additional activities there. I could also, if I wanted to look more broad, say I wanted to see what research is happening, what practices can I implement that have been published recently in research articles. I can search that way. Oops. If I want to see, there we go. So again, just different resources. I can sort and I can look at infographics, just things that people have created that could be helpful to my teaching. Again, this is just something that you would use for specific instances, but I feel like it could be helpful because there is so much that it offers. You can also sort by who it's intended for and the grade level. So that was the resource database. And then I'm also going to pop over to another element from this website. So the last thing I wanted to look on at this site is the IES What Works Clearinghouse page. So IES is a different institution. It has its own website if you wanted to deeper dive into this. But for the purpose of this video, I'm just going to look at their page on the FCRR. So IES What Works Clearinghouse practice guides are basically informational, I don't know if you would say pamphlets or publications that gives students and teachers information about what is working, what research-based strategies for teaching reading are being implemented in classrooms, and what is yielding results. Each one tells you the extent of research that has been provided for it, so whether or not it's very well supported, only slightly supported, if there's just a little bit of research. So that's really useful for implementing research-based instruction. And what this is especially useful for is implementing differentiation, understanding how to best support students who are new to certain content, or who may be specifically struggling, or even higher ability students, how we can differentiate instruction for everyone. So just scrolling through here, there's a lot of different topics that each one covers. In terms of phonics, so this says primary grades, literacy with early English learners. So if I look down here, so this is talking about decodable words, so that would be applicable. It has the tiers of how well supported it is. So like this one just says it has promising support. This one says has rationale, and then the evidence level. And then it will give you a video tutorial of how it can be implemented. And if you actually go and access the practice guide, there's also some written information as well to give you some additional support. And then there's related resources, that sort of thing. So this has been FCRR. Again, the primary resource on this site that I was highlighting was this Student Center Activities for Phonics, because it is so hard to find quality phonics resources, I feel like, that supports teachers specifically in implementing lessons in the classroom rather than just games or activities for students online. So again, I really recommend diving into this website, seeing what it can offer for all of the elements of reading. But this was FCRR for Phonics.